like many people who have never lived in a world without Lego Star Wars, and as a result, I really wanted to do a deep dive into the history of the most popular Lego theme to ever exist. And while that might not technically be a fact, Lego Star Wars undoubtedly has the highest sort of recognizability as well as impact on pop culture as a whole. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Holly and I have been a Lego fan for majority of my life. However, the theme that I know most about and would know like the back of my hand is Lego Harry Potter. I only started collecting Lego Star Wars in 2020, and since then I have really enjoyed the theme. I love the Star Wars universe ever since I watched all of the movies. The prequels quickly became my favorite just because of the like really complicated backstory. I didn't ever watch them as a kid growing up when they came out, so I don't have that same nostalgia view to them. However, I really love Lego Star Wars as a universe and a thing, so that is how I got here. Now, you may have noticed this red timeline behind me, and it only goes up to 2006, and you might be thinking to yourself, hold on, wait a minute, aren't we in 2023? That is true, but if I was to talk about over 20 years of Lego Star Wars in one video, we would be here for 3 hours. So instead, I'm gonna break it up into 3 sections and make this sort of a series instead, with the first video covering the first 8 years of Lego Star Wars from its creation and sort of the backstory behind it up until 2006, which was the year after the final Lego Star Wars prequel movie had released in cinemas. While this video is mainly about Lego Star Wars, I also want to talk about the context in the surrounding just Star Wars environment, talking about what things were happening with Star Wars as a franchise at that time, what things were happening with Lego as a toy company at that time, and just everything surrounding it, because there is a lot of backstory within these years, especially when it comes to Lego. So we're going to take it back to 99, and we're going to go even further back, because while Lego is a very successful toy company these days, things weren't always like that. As in 1992, Lego's profits were starting to decline, and things just really were not looking good for the Danish toy company. And this was after they had had decades of innovation. They went from making wooden toys into the plastic building blocks, as well as developing the minifigure into what we know and love today. There was a lot of stuff going on, and even though they were trying to make a couple of changes, the company's profits just continued to decline. There was a lot of red flags being waved around. It really just was not looking good. Now, in 1998, Lego actually posted a 23 million Great British pound loss, which was insane. And while they're a private company, they still continue to give us their sales figures. So honestly, I don't know why they told people that, but I guess probably it was a good thing in the end, because in 1999, Lego's sort of future changed forever. 1999 not only was the year I was born, but it was the year that Lego decided to introduce third-party licensed themes for the first time ever, which of course was starting off with Lego Star Wars. Now, back then, having these third-party IPs was a really big deal for Lego, because beforehand it had mostly just been wooden toys, classic space, castle, pirates, Vikings, and all things like that, whereas third-party licensed IPs firstly introduced some conflicts when it came to the brand morals and I guess sort of history of the brand, but also introduced a vast variety of ideas and concepts that Lego hadn't really touched before. These days in 2023, Lego has got a variety of licenses under their belt, including Super Nintendo, Transformers, Harry Potter, Marvel, Batman, DC. There is a lot going on, whereas in 1999, pretty much we started with Star Wars, and this was a really big red flag for some members at Lego, because prior to that, Lego had always been a very family-friendly brand and stayed away from violence. Now, half of this does hold true today, as Lego refuses to do anything military, so much so that I guess like people protesting Lego Technic Osprey caused a really big riot. But then at the same time, we've done Indiana Jones, and now we're bringing Indiana Jones back. And you know, those movies circulated around a really big war, so I don't know about that. We also have the BTS set, and they're all fighting in the Korean military. So these days the rules really aren't clear, and I guess even Star Wars is a really big factor to that. Firstly, because the name is literally Star Wars. So, you know, having wars in the name was a really, really big issue for a lot of members of Lego. So there was that aspect. There's also the violence aspect of the movies. I mean, with people fighting with light up swords as well as blasters, which I feel like was really more of an issue, that you'd have to create sort of like space weapons and things like that. But also the whole movie is basically just like space politics. That is the prequel series at the end of the day, which personally I love, but you know, maybe Lego not quite so much. Now, while Star Wars wasn't quite as family friendly as Lego's history, they were in desperate need of money, so they decided to take a risk on Star Wars as their first ever licensed theme, just because of the popularity behind the franchise as a whole. Which, can we blame them? not really. Honestly, I'm kind of grateful. So in March of 1999, LEGO released the first ever wave of LEGO Star Wars, which similarly today consisted of only original trilogy sets. There were things like Luke's land speeder. Can't really remember the rest off the top of my head, but here are some pictures. And this was LEGO's way of testing out the waters. Meanwhile, in the background, Star Wars was gearing up for the biggest push of merchandise that they have ever done. Besides the fact that you were going to get a bunch of old fans coming back in to see a prequel to their beloved franchise, The Phantom Menace was really just a really big draw to rake in some cash off a beloved pre-existing franchise. They were pushing so many different things. Basically every single brand under the sun was working with Star Wars at this point, which, you know, makes sense how LEGO ended up getting the license given their record-breaking losses at that point. But like even Pepsi was making coolers for this stuff. The amount of Phantom Menace merchandise there was insane. There were advertisements everywhere. There were a variety of different products. You could pretty much buy anything you wanted that was Phantom Menace and prequels themed, even a foosball table. So, you know, that was happening and is something to probably keep in mind as the LEGO sets did release. And while LEGO was freaking out over the heavy use of weapons with LEGO Star Wars, the popularity and success of LEGO Star Wars as a theme completely wiped off any of those concerns, considering how well that theme was doing compared to all of the other LEGO themes at the time. Then of course later in the year the Phantom Menace released alongside a wave of Phantom Menace themed LEGO sets, which again did sell really well despite how much I guess people just really did not like the prequels. Besides the sets this year as well, LEGO Star Wars also did release a range of keychains as well as these like 3-pack of minifigures, which are incredibly expensive these days, and one thing that you definitely do not see going forwards, presumably it's something to do with Hasbro. Honestly, I just think LEGO realizes that there is so much money in LEGO Star Wars that they don't want to give minifigures away like that. Whatever the reason is, you're not going to see this type of stuff anymore these days, so really 1999 was the only time you ever had an opportunity to get anything. Hello and welcome to Dex's Diner. I am your new head chef and this is my sous chef Grogu, and I might have lied on my resume and said that I was really good at cooking and still got the job anyway. So in order to help myself keep this job that I desperately need at this point, I have enlisted the help of HelloFresh in order to teach me how to cook as well as serve our customers a wide variety of top tier meals. HelloFresh have 40 weekly recipes to choose one from a wide variety that suits all types of preferences as well as picky eaters like myself. I know, a bit ironic, isn't it? They even allow you to customize select meals, so if you want to add protein to a plant-based meal, or even upgrade your meats to organic if you really want to. With the cost of groceries going up in Coruscant as well as a ton of other systems, it has been incredibly helpful at helping us save money as well as budget a lot better when it comes to food. HelloFresh helps you save time by doing all of the planning and pre-selecting and pre-portioning your groceries so that you have less food wastage and also don't have to spend time walking up and down the grocery aisles wondering what's for dinner. And being the head chef of a restaurant, I am very strapped for time, and sous chef here can't walk to go get groceries either. The fact that everything gets delivered straight to our door is incredibly helpful and honestly a lifesaver. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code HollyOnFilm60 for 60% off plus free shipping. My family absolutely loves it and it has been so good at teaching me how to cook, which as well as helped me keep my minimum wage job here at Dex's Diner. There's a link in the description down below, so don't forget to use code HollyOnFilm60 to get yourself some delicious food as well as save yourself some money. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video and also helping me keep my job here. Look, times are tough in Coruscant, man. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive. Moving on to the year 2000, and the LEGO Star Wars hype train is still going at full speed ahead. Everyone is still excited about the prequels, and LEGO as well is really enjoying the hype train of the money that they are raking in from having LEGO Star Wars under their belt. So LEGO continued on riding that train and released and expanded the LEGO Star Wars theme even more. One of the more unique and interesting products that LEGO released, a part of their expansion of LEGO Star Wars, was like this Mindstorms kit, which was basically like a droid developer type of thing, and you could just build your own little droid and like code it and whatever. And now that I think about it, actually the keychains and minifigure packs were a 2000s thing and not a 1999 thing. I guess it was basically just to like fill up the gap in between the next movie coming out. Let's fix that. There we go. Oh, I forgot I also drew up a thing to represent LEGO's loss. Exciting times. Now, while this was more of a filler year given the fact that there was no new Star Wars content coming out, one of the biggest and most successful sub-themes of Star Wars did actually start in 2001, that being the Ultimate Collector's Series, which rather than a bunch of small playsets, was a lot larger models made for more of the adult fans, which in Star Wars case, there was a very, very big audience right from the get-go, and this is one of LEGO's only product ranges, I guess, at at the time, and for honestly several years afterwards, that did actually cater to adults rather than primarily children. And it's one of those things that just really pioneered and really set the course for LEGO going on in the future. Like Modern Times as well, there were 2 UCS sets that did release that year. The first set, of course, was our first ever UCS Luke's X-Wing, which, I mean, they're still remaking to this day. In fact, 2023 is going to have another one, which will be our 3rd UCS Luke's X-Wing. And there was also a TIE Interceptor that released that same year, both of which very, very valuable, very, very vintage looking things, but also like, that was the start of a very successful and really, really cool sub-theme of LEGO Star Wars, and for that, I am very grateful. Not that it's super important, but the year 2001 did actually round off again with another Mindstorm set. This time was a little bit different, but essentially the concept of all of those sets are exactly the same, so it doesn't really get to go on our interesting timeline. So while 2000 was a pretty exciting and successful year, 2001 on the other hand didn't really have anything that was overall too impactful. There was 4 original trilogy sets that released, 2 prequel sets, as well as 2 UCS sets, but I feel like I should still put the little line on the timeline anyway. Now going back a little bit, 2000 also had a Technic sub-theme that existed, which was a bunch of buildable characters made out of Technic pieces, which honestly sounds like my worst nightmare. I hate building Technic. There was also 2 of them that did release in 2001, but that sub-theme died pretty quickly. It did not last that long. Honestly, the coolest one was like the Super Battle Droid, as well as the buildable Battle Droid. Those, I think, really suited the Technic sub-theme. Everyone else just looks a little bit awkward and almost felt a little bit gimmicky. But much like the Phantom Menace merchandising in general, I feel like LEGO was just like really throwing everything at it and seeing what sticked. Next up we have 2002, and firstly the biggest thing that happened is of course the release of Attack of the Clones. Last year, it's been 20 years since that movie came out, and yeah, Modern Times didn't really do anything, but on release year, 2002 was a very, very big year for LEGO Star Wars, and honestly is a very impactful year when it comes to the whole history of the theme in general. Just like the Phantom Menace, Lucasfilm was incredibly unhinged when it came to the amount of merchandise that Attack of the Clones was doing, so LEGO, likewise, was put into full force, coming out with a bunch of Attack of the Clones sets, which is frustrating because the movie, while really good when it comes to the story and overall, there was like some good visuals. I mean, how could we forget Naboo? Had really bad script writing, so really, you know, we were all in for a mixed bag here. Out of all of the years of LEGO Star Wars though, I feel like while no one really talks about 2002, I honestly think it's one of those years that people really, really like. I feel like there's a lot of interest in that year particularly, even though no one ever explicitly says so. But before we get into that, the first thing that did actually happen in 2002 was the end of the Technic line. Oh, what a shame. So since that sub-theme had died, it was time to introduce something new, and that was the Star Wars mini-series. So basically, instead of having like a playset size thing for everything, it was more so like shrink it down, make it small, make it cheap, and then people will buy more of them. Actually, they were pretty cool. I liked the packaging. It was different. It was unique, but again, I don't think it really grabbed people's attention the same way that the UCS sub-theme did. I mean, that thing was just like... So now that LEGO had really tested out the waters with LEGO Star Wars and realized this is actually making us money, they increased production, ramping up the sets to 6 from Attack of the Clones, as well as 8 original trilogy sets, because, you know, you gotta appease every single fan, which is something that I feel like would be really nice if they continue to do a little bit more these days, though we are getting better, I shouldn't be salty. But 2002, again, really great year. Some of the standouts. Firstly, Django Slave 1. This is the only time we've ever gotten a proper Django Slave 1, and while this set looks incredibly janky, it really has a soft spot with a lot of people. Personally, you know, like a lot of 2002 sets, it's not built that great. However, it's like the original Jango Fett minifigure, which is incredibly expensive these days at around $600. It also had a version where you could get a carrying case. Why does this exist? I don't know, but the set itself, again, is also incredibly valuable and is one of those really big standouts alongside the 2002 Republic gunship. Where do I start with this one? Besides being the first ever Republic gunship, which in itself is pretty cool, it's become one of those ships that I feel like is really popular and really prominent from both the prequels as well as the later Clone Wars series. But also, this set contained a minifigure that ended up being a cult icon, and that is Jedi Bob. I mean, it's not written that he's called Jedi Bob on the box anywhere. In fact, I'm actually pretty sure he's supposed to represent this background Jedi. But this minifigure has become a very cult icon when it came to internet culture several years later. For the most part, I'm pretty sure no one actually cared about this guy when the set came out at all. It was just more of like a bonus, I guess. But now he is incredibly popular, incredibly beloved. If you were a part of like the online Lego community, you have probably heard about him and the cries to get an updated one or a new one. I don't think that's ever happening. I mean, for the most part, people don't even know who this is. I know when I first got into Lego Star Wars, I didn't know about this guy or like the significance behind him, but like I said, he's a cult icon. He has a cult following behind him. Jedi Bob's release was really a pretty big impactful moment, I guess, when it comes to Lego Star Wars as a whole, because of how big and much it affected the overall Star Wars community. Even though it might be like a pretty small but passionate section of the community as a whole, it's there, you can't deny it. Now 2002, when it comes to UCS sets, was honestly such a solid year. Firstly, there was 3 that released, but also they came across a variety, I guess, of different parts of Star Wars, which I think was really cool and something I would love to see happen more these days. First up was the UCS Naboo Starfighter, which honestly, I don't actually know if this counts as UCS given how small it is, but like it's a really cool set. The chrome lacquering on it is really cool. It's very pretty. It's also one of very few prequel themed UCS sets that came out, so I'm very grateful for that. There was also a UCS Yoda buildable statue, which is a little bit creepy, and honestly I feel like was thrown in because of, I guess, firstly Yoda's impact in Attack of the Clones and how heavily he was kind of featured in that movie, but also it covers both the prequel fans and covers the prequel movies that are coming out, as well as the original trilogy fans who are reluctantly watching all of these movies in cinemas at this point. And the last one was a pretty popular set, being the UCS Star Destroyer. This one, again, is really cool, massive compared to the Naboo Starfighter, which I feel like then balanced out the price when it came to those 3 sets throughout the year, which when you look at all 3 of them, it makes sense why they had the budget to do all 3 of them, rather than just making 2 larger models on its own. Sorry, I went to get a snack, I'm really hungry. So one thing that I also did forget to touch on with 2002 before we move on to 2003 is the clone building event that happened. Now, while this wasn't technically, I guess, a part of like regular Lego Star Wars, it's kind of a thing that I guess like is kind of background knowledge. Basically, it was a really big promotional event at, I believe, Walmart or Toys R Us, where there was a giant box just full of clones. Like, it was a very classic kind of vintage, like first ever like phase 1 clone design, and you had to build as many as you can within 60 seconds. But that is the kind of general concept. I thought I would throw it in here because like this box is incredibly rare and is one of those like pieces of Star Wars memorabilia, I feel like, when it comes to Lego, that is just like really rare, really cool, and just like something that you're probably never going to see or many people even know about in general. I'm also unaware if like each individual competitor got their own box or if it was just like there was a box and then they poured out the figures, but that was a thing that happened in 2002 and like one of those fun and promotional events. I believe there was a second one that happened a couple years later. Don't quote me on that. I'm honestly still hungry after my snack, but I kind of want to keep filming. Now, let's talk about 2003, and people's appetite for Attack of the Clones stuff was still pretty high, which is why LEGO released the first ever ATTE, again, using those clones from that clone building event. There was like 2 of them that were thrown in there, which was pretty cool. We also got our first ever AT-80, which, like, love them, iconic, and a whole range of like Jabba's sets, which was really cool. Jabba himself, awesome mold given the year group. I think that was really fun, and I love how they all sort of tied into one another. So you had a range of Return of the Jedi themed sets, as well as some more from Attack of the Clones. Again, it was some nice variety and stuff that we hadn't seen before. But as you can see, even with the releases of those sets, it was a very Return of the Jedi heavy themed year, which was pretty good. I mean, outside of the AT-AT, like everything pretty much was Return of the Jedi, which was nice because like previously it's been a lot of like A New Hope sets going on, so it's good to take a little break from that here. But it was the first of another off year, so really not that much was going on. Same deal with 2004. Again, not much is going on because it was an off year. Actually, I don't even think there was anything super notable. I think it was one of the quietest LEGO Star Wars years they've ever had. Found more cards that I didn't add, yay! Now that the timeline is actually up to date, yeah, 2004 really did not have anything notable. The most notable thing I could even find or like one to put down was that they made a remake. So I titled this one a remake already, but even then, like that's actually not something that's like super, I guess, important at all. Really, 2004 was such a dead year. Or was it? Hold on, when did Cloud City come out? 2004 was so dead, in fact, that I wanted to fact check when Cloud City came out, since I don't actually have it written down. Even that didn't come out in 2004. That was a 2003 set, and you know, let's talk about Cloud City actually now that I've brought it up. So Cloud City was a LEGO store exclusive or LEGO exclusive set, which back in the day was actually kind of hard to get a hold of. I mean, given that LEGO has really only recently had some financial success at this point for like the last, what, 5 or 6 years. I can't imagine there were that many LEGO stores around. Also, the internet really wasn't thriving at this point, so it's not like you could order it on lego.com and get it shipped to your house. So Cloud City became this like kind of hard to get thing. Then recently, for some unknown reason, it has just gone. Why is it so expensive? I don't know. I mean, I get the rarity aspect of it, but why it's so desirable is a completely different question. I mean, admittedly, there were some exclusive minifigures, being Cloud City Boba Fett, which I'm pretty sure is the first minifigure to have arm printing. I might need to fact check that. There was also an exclusive Lando, exclusive Leia, a Cloud City Luke, and then just, you know, typical Han Solo and Darth Vader that really weren't that interesting. The build was like kind of like a play set, but maybe looked a little bit more display. I don't actually know why it was like a LEGO exclusive, but that happened in 2003. That was actually probably the biggest thing, because like these other two sets really, I mean, exciting, but they're not Cloud City. Cloud City is so rare and expensive these days. If you want just the Boba Fett from that set, you're gonna be spending like $2,000, and if you want the set itself, it's like $8,000 to $9,000. It's a bit insane. To the moon. As we get to the end of the timeline, we have 2005, which was another massive year for LEGO Star Wars, as firstly, the best LEGO Star Wars movie, not LEGO Star Wars movie, best Star Wars movie ever, released Revenge of the Sith. This is personally my favorite. I just think it's fantastic, and again was a really, really big thing for not only just Star Wars, but also meant for LEGO Star Wars. There was a range of really, really cool Revenge of the Sith themed sets that came out that year. There was just a lot going on. Now, luckily, because this film was really, really good, the amount of effort that I guess Lucasfilm and LEGO were putting into it, I feel like really paid off. Revenge of the Sith, massive movie, lots happens. It sums up our prequel trilogy, it's the finale. Everyone is excited to see how this story ends. And, you know, notably, there was a lot of really cool LEGO sets. Firstly, we got some really cool starfighters. We had the introduction as well of light-up lightsabers, which, while, I mean, they didn't really age particularly cool and only lasted 1 year, were a fun little, I guess, like, gimmick thing to release alongside Revenge of the Sith. We had turbo tanks. We had Vader's transformation. We had Arc 170s. Honestly, it was just thriving. LEGO Star Wars was thriving when it came to like prequel sets in this year. Firstly, just the stuff they were basing it on was honestly a lot, I guess, more interesting and just cool overall. But also the vehicles and the scenes that they were depicting were awesome. And much like the rest of LEGO Star Wars as well, of course, there was a couple original trilogy sets, being this time around a TIE fighter, as well as our first ever Sandcrawler, which was pretty cool and honestly a little bit bulky. I mean, I feel like that one does hold up a bit today though, just a bit. Not that I've ever really seen it in person though, so I guess I can't speak to it for that. Now, while there was a lot of really, really interesting sets that did come out in 2005, one of the most, I guess, historical and notable things outside, of course, of the release of Revenge of the Sith from 2005 was the introduction of the first ever LEGO video game produced by TT Games, and the first LEGO Star Wars video game to ever come out, which was appropriately titled LEGO Star Wars, the video game. This thing was very, very iconic. I mean, not quite to the extent of one we will touch on very shortly. However, it did kick off like this sub-franchise that introduced so many new people to the world of LEGO Star Wars because of the fact that it was purely a video game. It has become such a like nostalgia trip from many, many, many people. It is crazy. Now, lastly, for the early days of LEGO Star Wars, we have 2006. Now, I don't think that this was quite as exciting or big or notable as 2005, but to me, 2006 really ended, I guess, like a chapter when it came to LEGO Star Wars, as afterwards things changed, I guess, like pretty significantly. So this is why I've decided to cap it out here. Now, of course, the biggest thing when it came to 2006 was the creation of the UCS Death Star that was completely paneled, had the big green laser. Now, this was actually revealed and announced at Toy Fair, which was, again, another really exciting thing. And this model has become such an iconic thing to this day. LEGO has never actually gone and remade it thus far either. You've got to fork out a ton of money to get this set. It is so well known. Like, before I even actually cared about LEGO Star Wars and was really just reading catalogs and watching a couple of LEGO videos in the early 2010s, the Death Star 2 was something that I didn't actually know about. I saw it, I thought it was really cool, I knew that the set existed, I knew it was really rare, and it was one of those things that really stuck out to me even though I wasn't really a part of the LEGO Star Wars fans or whatever. That is how much of an impact this set has. If you want to go and purchase that Death Star these days, you're going to be paying thousands of dollars. I mean, it's one of those sets that really, I guess, inflated a lot in price, and it's one that I often find news companies will use as an example to why LEGO is a better investment than gold. This set came out in 2006. The fact that it is so expensive, you know, that makes sense. If you don't know, those articles are really, I guess, exaggerating a little bit, because unless you were buying LEGO from this time period here, you're probably not going to see the same return on investment. So anyway, the last thing that happened that was really, really notable from 2006, following off the release of the LEGO Star Wars video game, was the release of Editing Holly here, and I did some fact checking and I actually mixed up the games. It was LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, that came out in 2006, so I had to cut this entire clip, and also the little card on the timeline will be wrong and say the complete saga, which that one came out in 2007, so don't listen to the card, listen to me now. Those video games had such an insane chokehold on people, it's wild. Now 2006 again was another year that there was no Star Wars content being released. However, following that was the announcement, I guess, release of the Clone Wars series. So LEGO Star Wars was really about to get kicked into gear. But throughout this really early first period, it was really fun because there was a lot of new Star Wars content happening. And as cool as it was to have all of these amazing things, I really believe that if Lucasfilm didn't put such an emphasis on marketing and having collaborations with every single brand under the sun for the release of the Phantom Menace, I don't think that LEGO Star Wars would be a thing, and I'm really glad that it did, because essentially all of this stuff really saved LEGO in a way. Alongside LEGO Harry Potter, which did start in 2001 and continued throughout most of this as well. And during this time period as well, there was a lot of major things happening for LEGO. I mean, 2003, Lando Calrissian was the first minifigure to have a non-yellow head, which was really cool. And then in 2004, Harry Potter brought us the flesh tones for the first time ever, which then continued on. I guess you could see that in the 2005 sets, but there was a lot of really exciting things happening for LEGO at this time, and without LEGO Star Wars helping bring them in some money, I really highly doubt that LEGO would firstly exist today, but also just be the brand that it is today, because LEGO Star Wars gave them so much power when it came to acquiring other licenses, as well as raking in money in order to do a lot of really cool product development and upgrades and changes, which, I mean, this was a really exciting period of time, even though it was still very, very early days. So that is a rundown on the first 8 years of LEGO Star Wars history. As you can see, a lot of stuff happened, a lot of really big changes, and we are only just getting started. If you were paying attention to LEGO Star Wars or have any extra information about this time period, please let me know in the comments down below, because I had such a fun time researching this. And also let me know what you think of my timeline. I put a lot of effort and energy into this. I might actually leave it up for a day or two, because I really don't want to take it down right now. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button down below, and please consider subscribing to my channel so that you can watch the other 2 parts of this unhinged nonsense. Thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and you can sign up using my link in the description down below. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later.